The cafeteria on the Interstellar Academy of Cultural Exchange smelled like a chemical spill blended with a backyard barbecue. It wasn't technically either, but the mix of galactic cuisines turned the air into something that dared the unprepared to breathe deeply. Larek Oden stood in line with a tray in his hands, his eyes scanning the shifting menu projected above the serving station. The words kept changing every 10 seconds to accommodate the languages of the 24 species currently enrolled at the academy. Behind him, a tall, pale green alien with translucent skin and large, black almond-shaped eyes tilted its head. The translator embedded in its collar buzzed quietly before speaking in a calm, genderless tone. Larek, I must caution you. That dish, it pointed a three-jointed finger toward a bubbling red mass in a shallow bowl, contains capsaicin. It is classified as a Class 7 biochemical irritant on my homeworld. Larek turned, blinked once, then looked back at the dish in question. That's just chili. The alien's eyes widened slightly, its skin tone shifting from pale green to a worried aquamarine. You are aware it can cause cellular inflammation, neurogenic pain, and in high doses, hallucinations? Larek grinned, picking up the bowl with a nod of thanks to the robotic server. We call that a spicy meal. He walked off before the alien could respond, tray balanced in one hand, the other grabbing a spoon. The alien, whose name was Erali, watched him go, visibly disturbed. The human sat in the far corner of the cafeteria, near the wide windows that looked out into the Academy's orbital ring. Earth floated in the distance, blue and inviting. Larek dipped his spoon into the chili and took a large bite, chewing slowly. By his third spoonful, his lips were sweating. His nose had started to run, and by the fourth, he let out a low whistle and reached for his water bottle. Erali approached cautiously, standing just beside his table. You are experiencing physical distress. Should I alert the medical team? Larek coughed, took another swig of water, and waved his hand. No. This is how you know it's working. Erali hesitated. Working? The spice. It's supposed to hurt a little. That is biologically irrational. Larek laughed and dabbed his forehead with a napkin. Welcome to Earth cuisine. The bells signaling the end of lunch buzzed overhead. Students began shuffling out to their next lectures. Erali remained standing, watching as Larek scraped the last bit of chili from the bowl. You ingested the entire portion. Are you unharmed? Larek's face was red, eyes watery, but he smiled through it. Might regret it in a few hours, but yeah, I'll survive. That afternoon, they sat together in Professor Dern's class on intercultural ethics. The lecture was dry, mostly revolving around diplomatic disasters caused by culinary misunderstandings. Larek's stomach gurgled once, loudly enough to make the student next to him shift in their seat. He tightened his jaw and sat straighter. After class, Erali followed him to the dormitory. You are demonstrating symptoms of internal inflammation. You should rest. Larek dropped onto his bed, face pale now. Yeah, might have overdone it. Why would you subject yourself to pain voluntarily? Larek sat up slowly. Because food isn't just fuel for us. It's culture. Memory. My grandpa made chili like that for 4th of July. He'd say, if your tongue ain't crying, you're not doing it right. Erali's head tilted again. You associate suffering with family bonding? Larek chuckled softly. Something like that. Later that night, Larek couldn't sleep. The pain in his stomach had migrated lower, sharper than before. He groaned and stumbled into the shared bathroom. 30 minutes later, Erali found him slumped on the floor, sweating through his academy-issued shirt. You require medical attention. No, he doubled over again, clutching his abdomen. Erali knelt and activated his calm emergency response to Dorm C, Room 22. Potential gastrointestinal trauma in human male. Within minutes, 2 medical officers arrived. One was Terran, the other a thick-skinned Martian with 4 arms. Larek groaned as they lifted him onto a hover stretcher. Didn't think chili would be what took me out, he muttered. The Terran medic frowned. You ate the Academy's chili alone? Yeah. Is that a crime now? It's not made for human digestion. That was the Exelon Spice Blend batch. Larek blinked. Wait, that wasn't Earth chili. No, the medic turned to Erali. Why didn't you stop him? I attempted to warn him, Erali said. The next 12 hours were a blur of nausea, for drips, and a mild fever. Larek lay on a plastifoam bed in the infirmary, staring at the ceiling as soft music played overhead. When he woke again, Erali was seated at his bedside. I have reviewed your species' digestive tolerances. Capsaicin is not inherently lethal to humans, but your body's reaction exceeded expected parameters. Larek groaned and shifted on the bed. I thought I could handle it. I've eaten ghost peppers before. Ghosts do not possess peppers. It's a name for a really spicy variety. Erali folded his lower limbs over his knees. Your resilience is both remarkable and deeply illogical. A week passed before Larek was cleared to leave the infirmary. He'd lost 5 pounds, and his digestive system still growled like an angry engine. But he was upright, moving, and determined to attend the next cross-species bonding event. Against all logic, it was a food festival. Erali stood beside him at the entrance, arms crossed. You are not consuming anything without my analysis. That's fair, Larek said. They walked past tables of steaming dishes, bubbling drinks, and glowing desserts. Larek avoided anything with a red hue. Erali scanned each item with a handheld analyzer. Halfway through the hall, Larek spotted a booth labeled Authentic Terran Cuisine. He approached with renewed enthusiasm. The booth was run by a small group of Earth students, and on the table sat a tray of wings coated in a dark crimson sauce. Are those what I think they are? Larek asked. Hellfire wings, one of the students confirmed. Made with Carolina Reapers. Erali held up the scanner. Capsaicin concentration is within tolerable levels. Slight risk of gastrointestinal discomfort. Larek grinned. I'll take one. He bit into the wing, chewed, swallowed, and froze. Erali leaned in. You were crying. Larek nodded. That's how you know it's good. The student behind the table looked impressed. Most people tap out after one. I've been through worse, Larek said, voice hoarse. Erali recorded the moment on his data pad. I will submit this to the cultural database as a case study. Of what? Human culinary self-endangerment. Larek laughed, then coughed violently. They exited the hall an hour later, Larek slower than when he entered. But he was satisfied. I still don't get why you do this, Erali said. Because it hurts in a way that makes you feel alive. Because sometimes, a little fire reminds you you've got a mouth worth using. Erali blinked. Your species is baffling. And yours is too careful. That is how we've survived for millennia. Larek clapped his shoulder. So have we. Just with a little more chili. They returned to their dorms under the artificial twilight of the orbital ring, Earth still hanging in the distance like a memory. Larek's stomach rumbled, but this time, he smiled through it. He'd learned something. Next time, he'd taste first, analyze later. Maybe. 2 days after the food festival fiasco, Larek sat cross-legged on the floor of his shared dormitory room, surrounded by an array of insulated containers, sealed vials, and a small thermal scanner. A tangled mess of nutrient tubes snaked from a portable cooler to his lap, where he clutched a packet labeled neutral carb slurry flavorless. He tore it open and sniffed. Smells like wet chalk. Erali stood a meter away, arms tucked behind his back, watching with the same cautious focus he usually reserved for weapons demonstrations in conflict ethics class. You are under a soft food restriction. You should not be evaluating it based on olfactory appeal. Larek squeezed the slurry into a cup and stirred it with a finger. I know. Just saying, if this is what survival tastes like, I'd rather gamble again. You are not authorized to gamble with your digestive lining for the remainder of the semester. Who authorized that? I did. Your medical clearance is conditional, and I have direct approval from the human liaison officer to monitor your intake. Larek blew out a slow breath and took a reluctant sip. Tastes like drywall. Erali tilted his head. I am unfamiliar with drywall. Is it a nutritional compound? No. Building material. Don't eat it. I did not plan to. There was a knock at the door. It slid open to reveal a tall insectoid with iridescent carapace and 6 twitching limbs. Its compound eyes darted between Larek and the array of food packets. You are the human who ingested the Exelon blend, it said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes caught in static. Larek gave a half-wave while wiping slurry from his chin. That's me. Captain Chili. I am Grillthex. Culinary student, 3rd cycle. I have a research proposition. Erali stiffened. He is not a subject. Grillthex ignored him. We are assembling cross-species volunteers for a neural taste mapping experiment. We require a human palate. Larek blinked. Taste mapping. We aim to observe how neurochemical responses vary across species. You would wear a cortical sensor while sampling minor flavor compounds. Nothing hazardous. Erali stepped between them. He is still recovering. I'm fine, Larek said. I mean, I still dream about dying in a bathroom stall, but otherwise, I'm solid. That is not reassuring, Erali said. I've eaten gas station sushi in Missouri. I'll survive a few flavor tests. Grillthex handed over a translucent data slate. If you agree, report to Lab Ring B at the 3rd rotation cycle. You will be compensated with 1.5 academic credits and a dietary voucher. Larek's eyebrows lifted. I can get out of slurry hell? If the experiment proceeds without incident, yes. Erali's mandibles clicked gently. I will accompany him. No need, Larek said. I'm not licking anything without scanning it first. Grillthex gave a satisfied buzz and departed. Later that cycle, Larek stood in a sterile lab chamber, a thin mesh cap pressed to his scalp. Dozens of tiny sensors glowed faintly around the edges. Grillthex tapped at a console. You will receive microdoses of flavor elements through a vapor interface. Inhale when prompted. Larek sat back in the chair and glanced at the clear tube aimed toward his face. So this is like those oxygen bars, but for taste? Similar, but calibrated for neural response rather than pleasure. Great. I love being a science project. The first mist was mini, sharp, but clean. Larek exhaled slowly. Grillthex jotted notes with a stylus held in one of its lower limbs. Initial response indicates elevated serotonin and mild endorphin release. Larek gave a thumbs up. That one was nice. Like toothpaste after a breakup. Unusual metaphor. Next compound. The second mist was earthy and bitter, like boiled bark. Larek made a face. Tastes like regret. Erali, seated behind a glass partition, observed silently. 2 other lab assistants, a feathered avian and a bulbous gelatin-based being, whispered to each other as Larek reacted to each new vapor. By the 5th compound, Larek's pupils had dilated slightly, and he was tapping his foot. This one's weird. Sweet, then sour, then kinda metallic. Grillthex paused. That was a misfire. It was meant for a species with copper-based hemolymph. Larek coughed. You sure this thing's safe? No fatalities recorded yet. That's not comforting. The 6th vapor was colorless and odorless. Larek inhaled. His eyes blinked rapidly. Tastes like static. Is that possible? Like licking a TV from the 90s. Fascinating. That compound was designed to simulate emotional memory through taste. Larek's voice dropped. I just remembered the smell of my grandmother's garage. Grillthex leaned in. We may have unlocked species-specific mnemonics. Continue. After 12 compounds, Larek slumped in the chair, his expression dazed but content. Grillthex powered down the cap. Your data is exceptional. You may return to solid food pending clearance. Erali met him outside the lab. You appear altered. I feel like I watched my entire childhood through a kaleidoscope made of jelly beans. That is not a normal recovery milestone. They made their way down the corridor, passing a group of students engaged in heated debate over the ethics of multisensory cuisine. A small reptilian student hissed as they argued about whether taste could be weaponized. Larek paused. Wait, are they seriously talking about flavor warfare? It has been proposed. One species developed a pastry that induces temporary amnesia. I want that recipe. You are not cleared for amnesiogenic confectionery. They reached the dormitory as the artificial daylight dimmed to twilight hues. Larek sat on his bed, unwrapping a sealed ration bar labeled mild, savory, human standard. Erali stood near the window, observing orbital tugs as they drifted past Earth's shadow. I have submitted your neural data to the Taste Consortium. You may receive further invitations. Did you list me as volunteer or reckless idiot? I used your full registry ID. Larek took a bite of the bar and chewed thoughtfully. Tastes like cardboard, but better than slurry. Erali turned slightly. You are aware this experience will be reviewed during your performance evaluation? Good. I want them to know I suffered for science. A soft chime interrupted them. Larek tapped the comm panel on the wall. A deep, rumbling voice filled the room. Human Larek. This is Instructor Tharn of Planetary Physiology. You have been selected for an adaptive trial involving thermal resilience. Larek looked at Erali. You think this is about the chili? Almost certainly. The voice continued. Report to the surface simulation dome at 1st rotation. Wear breathable garments. Larek sighed. Every time I do something dumb, the galaxy takes notes. They consider it data. Great. I'm a walking case study. Erali sat across from him, one limb resting on the table. You continue to challenge my understanding of your species. I challenge my own understanding daily. Silence settled for a moment. Then Larek grinned. You think they'll make me run through fire? I hope not. I kind of hope they do. Erali's eyes narrowed. Why? Because pain is temporary. But stories? Stories last forever. By the third artificial dawn cycle, Larek was already regretting his choice of breathable clothing. The moment he entered the surface simulation dome, the air hit him like an open oven door. A heat shimmer coiled above the sand-colored polymer panels that posed as terrain, and the overhead projection blazed with a sun that was uncomfortably convincing. He squinted up toward the observation deck, where Instructor Tharn, a hulking biped with reflective scales and a flat, angular face, surveyed the chamber from behind a heat-shielded window. A low tone buzzed in the air. Candidate Larek, the voice echoed from embedded speakers. You will proceed to the central outpost replica. You have 15 minutes. A heavy door hissed shut behind him. The timer began. Larek didn't run. That would have been suicide in the heat, but his brisk walk quickly turned into a trudge. The sand beneath his boots gave just enough resistance to make every step feel like a mistake. At the halfway mark, sweat was already soaking through his shirt. His breath came in short bursts, and the air tasted metallic and dry, like it had been filtered through a radiator. He muttered to himself, Yeah, sure, let's wander through an alien convection oven. For science. At the edge of a false dune, he paused and looked down at his hands. They were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the strain of internal systems trying to cool a body that wasn't designed for this. Candidate Larek, Tharn's voice reverberated again. Your core temperature has risen by 2.7 degrees Celsius. Proceed. Larek exhaled through his nose and resumed walking. He didn't look up at the observation deck again. He didn't need to. He knew they were watching. He reached the central outpost with 3 minutes to spare. The structure was a low, dome-like installation, just wide enough for a single occupant. He pushed open the hatch and stumbled inside. The interior was marginally cooler, though still stifling. A hydration pack was mounted on the wall. He grabbed it, bit down on the nozzle, and drank until his stomach cramped. After a few deep breaths, he sat on the floor and leaned against the metal wall. His vision pulsed at the edges. He blinked hard, trying to focus. A soft chime inside the dome signaled the next phase. Candidate Larek, Tharn said, you will now calibrate the outpost's internal systems to support long-term survival parameters. Begin with thermal regulation. A control panel lit up beside him. Symbols scrolled across the screen. He recognized maybe half of them. Of course it's not in standard, he muttered. He tapped a few options, hesitating before selecting one that looked like a fan with a downward arrow. The system let out a low whine, and cool air began to hiss from vents above. He smiled weakly. Score 1 for intuition. Continue, Tharn instructed. Larek adjusted oxygen flow, light filters, and hydration recycling some correctly, some not. The system tolerated his errors without alarms, but the mistimed oxygen boost left him lightheaded for a full minute. Eventually, the panel green-lit his setup sequence. Calibration complete, Tharn confirmed. Remain inside for post-simulation observation. Larek lay back on the floor, letting the vented air wash over him. He was still sweating, but it no longer felt like his organs were melting. 10 minutes passed before the hatch opened again, this time from the outside, and Erali stepped in, carrying a thermal diagnostic scanner. His translucent skin had deepened into a muted bluish hue, a sign of stress relief. You should not have passed phase 2, Erali said without preamble. I didn't die. That's passing in my book. You nearly induced a heat stroke. Your cooling reflexes kicked in too late. Your blood pressure dropped. Your sodium levels are destabilized. Larek licked his lips. His tongue tasted like rust. That explains the tingling. You are aware most species would have aborted the test after the second temperature spike. That's probably why they're not studying them. Erali held up the scanner. Your readings are chaotic. You compensate with high variability but minimal efficiency. Which means you adapt faster than expected, but at great cost. Larek sat up, wincing at the effort. Wouldn't be the first time someone called me inefficient. You are not being preserved for performance. You are being observed for anomaly. Larek pulled the hydration pack back to his mouth and sipped slowly this time. You know, that's the second nicest thing anyone said to me all week. Erali didn't respond immediately. Instead, he adjusted the scanner, then tapped twice on the screen. You will rest for 2 hours. Then we're test under variable humidity. Fantastic. Erali paused at the hatch. Larek. Why did you volunteer for this trial? Larek leaned his head back against the wall. I started because it got me out of eating chalk. But now, I think I want to know where my line is. Erali's eye membranes narrowed. Your physiological limits? My breaking point, Larek said. Everyone out here seems to think humans are unstable, impulsive, overconfident. I want to find out if they're right. Erali stepped outside. The hatch sealed behind him. 2 hours later, the chamber was reset. This time, the heat was paired with dense, damp air that clung to Larek's skin like wet fabric. The sand had been replaced with slick, uneven stone. The objective was different: calibrate a water filtration system from raw environmental sources. Larek crouched beside a metal basin filled with stagnant liquid. The filter unit was alien 4 interlocking discs with grooves and a translucent membrane. No instructions. He studied the pieces, rotated the discs, and aligned them so the membrane stretched taut. Then he poured the liquid through and waited. It dripped slowly, beating along the edge. He dipped a test strip into the output. The color shifted barely. Candidate Larek, Tharn's voice interrupted. You have purified less than 10% of the required volume. You must accelerate the process. Larek shook out his arms and repositioned the filter. He opened one disc slightly to change the flow rate. The membrane pulsed, and the liquid began moving faster, but now bubbles formed. Too much pressure. He adjusted again, hands shaking. His shirt clung to his back like a second skin. He could feel his pulse in his ears. At the 15-minute mark, the test strip changed fully. He raised it toward the observation deck. Filtration complete, Tharn acknowledged. Proceed to shelter. Larek stumbled back inside the dome and collapsed onto the floor mat. This time, he didn't speak. He just stared at the ceiling, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Erali entered again, this time with a portable electrolyte injector. You are depleted. Larek nodded weakly. Feels like I've been microwaved and steamed. Erali pressed the injector to his neck. You have lost 20% of your fluid reserves. Your muscle coordination is impaired. Why didn't you stop? Because I could still move. That is not a justification. It is for me. Erali sat beside him, limbs folded neatly. You are not proving superiority. You are proving volatility. Maybe they're the same thing. Erali didn't argue. He simply handed Larek a sealed ration tube, cool, citrus-flavored, densely packed with salts and sugars. Larek drank it in 3 gulps. Outside, the projection dimmed to simulate evening. The simulation ended. Back in the medical wing, Larek lay on a diagnostic bed, sensors tracking his vitals. Erali stood at the terminal, reviewing the logs. You recovered faster than projected, he said. Good. Now I can crash early. The instructors have concluded their assessment. Larek raised an eyebrow. And they stated, quote, human adaptability is inefficient but unervingly effective. Recommend limited exposure to high variable environments unless absolutely necessary. Subject recovers from physiological strain with unacceptable enthusiasm. Larek smiled through cracked lips. So I passed. No, they are rewriting the parameters. Larek let out a dry, tired laugh. That's even better. Erali turned off the terminal. You are to avoid further voluntary trials until cleared. Fine. Can I still eat spicy food? No, Larek sighed. Figures. He sat up slowly, swinging his legs off the bed. You know, Erali, you're a pretty good friend for someone who thinks I'm a walking cautionary tale. You are not a cautionary tale. Larek looked surprised. You are a statistical outlier, Erali added, and a deeply inconvenient one. They left the medical wing together, walking in silence beneath the station's dimmed corridor lights. Behind them, a notice board updated silently with fresh postings. One line blinked in amber text, Cultural Resilience Workshop, Human Perspective Session now open. Larek didn't see it. He didn't need to. He'd already lived it.